Welcome to Fauxropter. Sitting across from me is...
John Dutton.
And sitting in my seat is me, Bobbie Gaucher.
Hi, Bobbie.
Hi, John.
So what are we up to today?
And today we're going to talk about, in my opinion, a very easy word. Some would say easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Would they?
Others would say difficult lemon difficult.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what you have to say after we talk about cancel.
Oh, gee. Okay, Bobbie, I feel like we are going to open a door to something or other here, like a Pandora's box of comments or something.
I think it's going to be really simple and easy and pleasant.
I feel like if we could bring simplicity and clarity to the word cancel, we would be doing a service to humanity.
Okay, so I'm going to do something we don't normally do. Mm-hmm. How would you define cancel?
Just in a general sense?
General sense.
Not the political woke sense or whatever?
Not even there yet.
Okay. It's you've started something, and then somebody has terminated it, and it can't start back up again.
So isn't it such a pleasant word for such a harsh action to cancel, as opposed to terminate, to exit, or to stop?
I agree with you. It's a nicer sounding word, and it doesn't sound as harsh.
Exactly. So I don't understand why there's so many harsh reactions to such a pleasant word. Like, don't you love canceling subscriptions?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or when Netflix asks you, are you still watching? And you can say, okay, or cancel.
I hadn't thought about that one. So
there's plenty of places where we use cancel in a very nice way.
Why, if I could just back up for 2 seconds, because Netflix has never asked me that question.
Oh my god, you don't watch enough Netflix.
I don't.
Oh my god.
Because I like watch it and then I'm like, I turn it off.
Yeah, and when you go to turn it off, it says exit Netflix, ? And it says okay or cancel. And everybody else aside from you presses cancel and they continue to watch their shows.
Okay, also, all right.
Just so you know, when you finish watching 3 episodes and you haven't touched your remote, it will say, are you still watching? ?
Oh, you know why? It's because I don't binge.
I know, you should.
We should perhaps do binge another time. Anyway, I'm sorry, I digress a lot about that.
Well, that's
so you're right, though, that cancelling things doesn't have to be negative.
Well, I don't think cancel has a negative connotation to it, even in terms of cancel culture. Mm-hmm. So what do you think of cancel culture?
I'm not sure that it's even a thing. I don't think that there's any culture that people subscribe to in any distinct sense, and that the reason that phrase exists is that some people who don't like what they're hearing about things, reactions to certain things, and those people, I guess you would call conservative, are really annoyed about something, and so they've given it this term that they can just like a label that they can just bandy around without really discussing anything. It avoids the need to discuss things. I
think that's like a very good point, because for a couple examples, like you could take celebrities who have been canceled, you can take movements that have been quote unquote canceled, and the reason why cancel culture is ascribed to it, like any comedian who has said the wrong thing, or the actual place that it comes from is any comedian or celebrity who has done heinous things towards other people. Mm-hmm. And people start to react and they want their fame taken away. Mm-hmm. And they want kind of their privilege taken away. Mm-hmm. And then it gets described a cancel culture label, like, oh, these people are just trying to... It's like, well, I think you're not willing to have a conversation about either sexual misconduct or racism or something that, like, I know PC is given a lot of hate, but there's a reason why people are reacting and upset. Mm-hmm. And instead of having that conversation, cancel culture.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think it's a way to not have a conversation at all. And obviously the thing is there's a spectrum, right? You can go from, I mean, this is random. I'm not saying this is one end of a spectrum, but somebody that there's like no argument about. Harvey Weinstein, okay? Like he's clearly guilty of all kinds of heinous things. So canceling him is actually not that big a deal because you're not that aware of like movies he made or whatever, all the way to potentially some event that happened with somebody where it was a little bit debatable what exactly happened, and then suddenly some people want to, I'm doing air quotes, cancel that person, where there's maybe some sort of discussion, but the thing is there's always a discussion that should be had. I think that's what you're getting at, right?
Well, I think there always should be that discussion, and also I don't think people have the power to cancel someone.
Oh, right. So that's the other side of the coin, isn't it? Is that the average person can't cancel anybody. And of course, Donald Trump can be like, well, I got cancelled from Twitter, right?
He was an idiot. And he went against their terms and conditions, and he said things that genuinely offended and were untrue.
That's it. He it's been like his fact-checked content was like half of it was lies.
So he wasn't cancelled.
Don't quote me on half, by the way.
It's more like 75%.
Yeah, it's maybe more.
But he wasn't cancelled. He was removed.
Yeah. He wasn't let into the pub anymore because he was like shouting a lot and disturbing everybody else.
Exactly. So like if you take actual tangible examples, it's much easier to see why cancel is a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Like Harvey Weinstein was jailed.
Yes. Which isn't cancellation, it's just justice. It's justice
and the law.
Yeah.
But to say, oh, it's cancel culture and this and it's... No, it's the law.
Yeah.
And saying things towards people that are harmful is also against the law.
Right. Yeah, and you can have public places. And I'm going to go back to the example of the pub, because it has the word pub. The word pub comes from public house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a public space, but it's not just for everybody, because the publican, which is the sort of official name of the owner of a pub in England, is able to just say, no, you get out. You're disturbing everybody else, right? You're drunk, or you're harassing people, or violent, whatever the thing is. That person can't be like, oh, I've been cancelled, or his friends can't say he's been cancelled. He's just not let in the pub anymore. So that's not the same thing.
I have the right to go into the pub.
Nope.
You don't. And you don't have the right to say, do, or write whatever you'd like.
Well, I mean, initially, people do have the right to go into places, because otherwise you can discriminate against people coming in the first place. You could say, well, we don't want any black people in the pub, which is illegal, right? Mm-hmm. So you have a right to go in. You just don't have the right to do anything you like in there.
Exactly.
Right?
You can be removed.
Yes, exactly. Because it's a public space, but it's not a publicly owned space.
Mm-hmm. And if you're removing people due to discrimination, then the pub would be removed.
Yes, exactly. And that also is cancelling in a good way, because that's not a good thing, right?
Exactly. So the idea of using cancel to shut down conversations or shut down ideas is ludicrous.
Right. And the other side of this that has occurred to me in the past is another type of cancellation is, if people stop watching Woody Allen movies or something, like as again, just picked from and I grew up loving Woody Allen, so I have no particular beef with him at all. But lots of people do, and I get why people might not want to watch his movies or feel icky about it, and maybe I would too if I went back and watched some. But that's a very different thing. Losing some audience, even because of some online general conversation, is one thing. Losing your job is a completely different thing. And there's been plenty of examples of people who didn't really do anything particularly wrong but lost their jobs. The kind of classic example is this, I think she was a PR executive, and I didn't research this ahead of time. She took off from somewhere in America in a plane and tweeted, because she was going to Africa, a very, very, very poor taste joke about, hope I don't get AIDS, something like that. And by the time she landed, after being asleep all night on a plane, she had effectively been cancelled, because there was a bunch of people on Twitter that piled in and said, oh my God, that's a terribly racist joke. And her employer fired her.
But I think that's the difference between cancel and fire. Again, I put such a positive note to the word cancel because it's not a very harsh thing. Mm-hmm. It's people disagreeing with you more so than you saying something terribly racist on a very public platform where people have the ability to read it and respond. Mm-hmm. So of course you're fired. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Whereas to be canceled is this very light thing that you're complaining about something.
So, in other words, if I understand correctly, what you're trying to get at here is that cancelling is actually, it's a sort of subtle weapon in the fight for justice, let's just say, or fairness or something, or non-discrimination, that you can use because it's not as harsh as firing somebody. So people deserve to get cancelled, but it doesn't mean that their lives are over. And I guess you could look at, what's his face, the stand-up comedian Louis C.K., right? He theoretically was cancelled, right? And now he's back.
But again, theoretically, he wasn't cancelled. He was fired. And he was fired because he sexually assaulted a couple women. And then he complained that he was cancelled.
Yes, he lost his job in the show.
So what I'm complaining about, or what I'm getting at, is that the people who use the word cancel don't have a real base. They're complaining that they did something wrong. They don't want to be blamed for it. Why are you cancelling me?
Yeah, and in fact, if people would just have a view of cancelling in a slightly more constructive way, let's say, they might see that as a way of learning, like, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
The thing I said, not cool.
Well, so Louis C.K.'s a perfect example, because if you go back and read his apology, I love his apology.
Okay.
I think it was fantastic, phenomenal. I'm a young woman. I loved Louis C.K. before. Do I necessarily think he should have a platform to continue to make jokes? No, I think he's lost that privilege. But I do appreciate that he came out and apologized.
Right. But if, let's go back to my example of the pub, because I always like a pub example if I can manage it.
Mm-hmm.
Some other, if you've been thrown out of one pub because you were causing a ruckus, guy down the street could let you in his pub, and that's okay, right?
Or you could go back the next day and say, I'm very sorry for causing a ruckus. I'll be better. And
it could be a sort of 3 strikes and you're out thing where the manager or the owner might be like, yeah, okay, but do it again, and you're out. Yeah, right. So cancelling doesn't even have to be as harsh as, let's say, the right makes it.
Again, I really think cancelling is a reaction to consequence.
Right. Very good. Do you have anything else to say about it?
I'm over it and stop using it.
Yeah, okay.
That's about it.
Well, because, I do think that it's used now to shut down conversations that should be had.
Yeah, it's a muzzle on opinions that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
It's a muzzle on the alternative narrative.
So in other words, people who talk about cancel culture are actually trying to cancel conversation.
Yeah. They're trying to maintain their privilege by saying, this is cancel culture, or that's too PC.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, this was very interesting, and I felt like I learned something there, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you to everybody for joining us. If you have any comments, I'm sure there won't be anybody who has any opinion whatsoever about this subject.
And I'm positive we won't be cancelled.
Yeah, we're uncancelable because, as of episode 10, I don't know if we have any listeners. But
if you want to, I would love that.
Right. So, yes, if you have any comments, please send them to us via the means mentioned in the show notes, and we'll be back soon.
See you soon.
All right, bye.